Welcome back to another episode of Fishing is My Summer Job. Today I'm fishing the Thornapple River. I'm doing a drift out of my drift boat, I guess. And like I say, I'm targeting smallmouth. This first fish that you're going to see is a very typical smallmouth for the Thornapple. I think it's probably about 12 inches. There's a lot of them in there in this size range, and if you're targeting them, you can catch literally hundreds on a float. And there's also a lot of rock bass, and every now and then we'll get a pike. On my float today, I'm primarily fishing a jig with a crayfish collar and also topwater. I go with green on the jig early in the season to match the molt color on the crayfish in this river. It seems to be a great route to go. And then the topwater lures, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. You just want something that makes a lot of noise and something that you are okay with losing. If I'm in an area that doesn't have a lot of logs and just fishing rocks, also deep diving crankbaits will work and produce good fish. The trick is, as on a drift, is that your boat is going to be moving, you're moving, and it's how do you land a fish while you're bumping into logs and so on. So hopefully you enjoy. A lot of cool stuff in this video. This past winter and spring, we had a lot of flooding on this river. It actually blew a dam between Thornapple Lake and Middleville, and it has put a ton of debris in the river. This is just a quick little, not even a portage. There were 3 or 4 times I had to get out, unload the boat, drag it across mud through the woods in order to finish this particular float, which I think is going to help the fishing in the long run. It is not an easy time out on the river. Here I'm going to show you a little trick. As I'm going by a piece of cover, a lot of people fish the front side of that cover, but I will always work the back side. I find that the way the river current works, the big fish will tend to hang back in any little nook and crevice behind the back side of the cover. It works topwater, it works with the jigs. This particular fish ended up being 21 inches. The current and then the way the log structures were, it was just a battle keeping them out of the logs and not going into a position where I'm going to break the rod tips on my other poles. As you can see, I've got a little device in the front of mine to keep everything kind of organized and down the center of the boat. That helps me a lot when I'm doing drifts, both for when I'm going through portages like I just did or through thick, narrow spots, but also if I have to, while fighting a fish, I'm floating. If you notice too, I fight a lot of times, I'll float backwards if it's not too thick. That just tends to give me a better angle when I'm casting back to a target. I've been fishing this particular river for about 25 years, and when I first started, I would skip grass flats. I would concentrate on wood and rock. What I've been finding is that if you know how to work a topwater lure, some of my biggest fish are coming off of grass flats now, and they are a blast. This smallmouth is about 23 inches. It's in my top 5 of all the smallmouth I've caught. The largest one I've caught and landed in this river was 24 3/4 inches, which is a monster in terms of smallmouths. The trick on the grass flats is after you do get a hit, you cannot give them any room to dive. You have to keep their nose up and fight them. They tend to keep up and they'll swim right across it as long as you're keeping enough pressure on them. And then it makes it so you can land them. But like I say, as you're out here fishing, keeping a mind and an eye on these areas that you look at it and say, oh, they're not that good. What I found on the grass flats is if they're 2.5 to 4 feet deep and flatted up, that's where they're at. This is a little smaller fish on a different spot on the grass flat. And even though it's not quite as large as the last one, after it hits, it jumps, and then once you get their nose up, you have to keep them coming real hard, almost force them right over top of the weeds, and you can land them. pay close attention while you're on the river. You never know what you're going to see. I happened to see a family of turkey vultures and an immature bald eagle on this trip. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Fishing is My Summer Job.